Thanks for joining me and Nayib on our post-game reactions to Mexico's victory versus Panama, a hard-fought 2-1 game. Nayib, what are your immediate thoughts after Mexico wins?
A sense of relief, no, Raul. First of all, thanks for the invite and to chat a little bit about Mexico and, a big week in a way for the unity of the team, ahead of the World Cup. I think it was important to get something positive out of this. Two wins against opponents that really had interesting details. Canada, had better possession than Mexico in the game. And today, I think what struck me was the intensity, no, the intensity of the press, especially bothering Carrasquilla with the ball, especially in the second half. Panama didn't do much in the second half. After you thought that after the penalty, they might have, gotten a little bit more on the ball and a little bit more active with it, but they really couldn't because Mexico just hammered them, in their area and they just couldn't do much. Good feelings, I think. It's kudos to the players, kudos to the coaching staff, and really galvanizing some sort of team at the moment, a team that is going to play in the World Cup next year.
And we talked a little bit before we started recording, but you can kind of tell. I mean, I walked away from the TV when they're all celebrating, but it was a unified team. Kind of like just talking about the United States, how they don't seem like a really cohesive unit.
Yeah.
Mexico's kind of getting together now. I would still say arguably USA is more talented than Mexico, the roster, just
Hmm.
on paper. But it's almost like the roles have flipped, like for the longest time, Mexico was a more talented team, but United States was like that squad that could get results, back in the early 2000s, early 20s. Now it's like USA is more talented, but Mexico's just playing more together.
Yeah, no, and he took risk, Aguirre, no, in starting Raul Jimenez and Santi Jimenez in both games. We really didn't know what was gonna come out of it. 4 goals for Raul Jimenez. It says a lot. Santi, I think, played better in the first half against Panama. I would say that this there was some options there that he could have scored, especially that second play where he took on the defenders and it was kind of similar to the goal that he scored in the Gold Cup. It could have
Yeah,
been, no?
yeah.
It was a very similar play. But, I think that it's a step in the right direction, no? It's not something to sort of make a big celebration about, but it's a good feeling considering how bad it has been in the last years, no? Especially in the last part of the Tata Martino era.
Like the kids say, the vibes were off, and now
Yes. Now there's some vibing going on.
looking at the lineup, they made 3 changes today. Elida, Vega, Charlie Rout, and Romo, Montes, and Huerta came in.
Yeah.
Did you agree with those? I mean, I kind of figured that he would go a little bit more offensive just because we're always going to have the ball more than Panama.
Mhm. Yeah, no, in the pressing, no, I think Romo and Edson really did a good job in going high and not really giving a damn about it. They were just going at it at the most of the game, especially Edson who played the whole game. With Montes, he look all right. I think with Johan there is some chemistry that is undeniable. It's there. For me, let me be honest. I mean, today the player of the game is Raul because of the goals, but Piojo Alvarado, my God, he
I
was doing
agree.
it on both ends of the field. I don't know if you noticed, but prior to the first Mexico goal, it was Alvarado that was doing the tackle in the box, preventing the Panamanian from, when Malagón sort of released the ball and the ball was loose, it was Alvarado that cleared it out. It shows you a little bit about the tenacity he had, but also the skill because most of the offense generated by Mexico tonight was through the boots of Alvarado. Alvarado was the one that's sending the crosses into the box. So, spectacular. I don't know if there's a player right now that you can say it's Alvarado and 10 more. Of course, Raul is there, no también. But Alvarado, because of the generational play, is gonna be important. The more he can get on the ball and stuff. But I was very, very impressed. Also in the Canada game, but today he left a big mark, I would say.
Yeah, and he was rewarded with that assist, and he was kind of all over the field. And he pushed more forward today because he didn't have the responsibility of shadowing Alonso or Alfonso Davies.
Yes, which is not it's not easy that.
No, I feel like against Canada, every time he pushed forward, he quickly looked back and be like, "All right, where's Davies?" Because Davies, if it was a foot race, Davies is going to win every single time.
Yeah, no, and look, I think it says a lot about, the confidence that Vasco has in him. No, it's sort of that his player, kind of like you're the guy. So make sure to take responsibility, no? And it says a lot, you know. So it says a lot that he's responding with good plays, and also the confidence that Vasco has deposited in him.
And Mexico is not, they're not a squad that can afford to have a couple players be on one side of the ball only.
No,
Long gone are the days of, I remember when Chucky Lozano was coming up, he didn't play any defense.
that's true.
You know what I mean? Like, people had to make sure where Chucky was because they knew he was not going to track back. And now, this team, I mean, how many tackles did you see Raul in
And
his own
Santi.
half just running all the way? He was everywhere. And yeah, Piojo kind of did the same thing. He was all over the field, especially against Canada, more defensively than tonight. But he was good, and I've been hard on him before, but he has not really shown out with the national team. But
Yeah, no, no.
these
He shut
180
a lot of people
minutes,
up. He shut
yeah,
a
he
lot of
did. He
people
shut
up.
me up, that's for sure. And then another stat to look at for Edson Alvarez today, he was 12 of 18 on ground duels, so he was everywhere.
He was everywhere. No, and you know, like you said, he did embody the captain. You know, the captain of the team. No, sort of. I mean, I think it was interesting what Vasco said in the presser before the game. It's like that he wants players that can play various positions, and Edson embodies that. You know, he can play center back, he can play it in the midfield. You know, move a little bit. He was very high as a defensive midfielder today. You know, he was also on the right side certain times. Israel Reyes is another player that can play as a right back, center back, and also midfielder. Today, you could have said, well, maybe Huescas could have played instead of Israel, make it more offensive. But I also understand that there was this idea of like leaving three in the back and allowing Gallardo to move more up in the offense, so that would leave three in the back. But you know, I think essentially he's finding pieces, no, and like I said, it's developing an 11 that is solid and that can compete against the better sides, no.
And having players that can play multiple positions, that just comes in handy so much when you're playing these top teams where, hey, we scored or they scored, we're going to switch up the formation, we're going to switch up the tactics. And you don't have to make a sub. You can just tell the players, hey, this is your new role. And for the next, 60, 30, 40 minutes, whatever, instead of having to make a sub, because Edson can play different positions. Alvarado can now play wingback, I guess, if you want him to.
Yeah. And also
Um,
Raul Jimenez, you know, Raul, he's that striker that likes to have the ball and he's not scared to move. You know, if he has to track back, he'll track back. You know, and I think that was one of his traits even before the injury, you know. And now that he's, you know, more mature, you know, playing in a side like Fulham that doesn't really have the ball, you know, you do have to master.
it's a different mentality when you're not the favorite every game. It just
Exactly.
is.
And I think that was something that we spotted in the game against Canada as to like, okay, we're not the favorite. We'll fight it out, you know, and it doesn't matter if we give the initiative to Canada. Let's see what they can do with the ball and we'll defend well, no? Which is something that perhaps before it was tough for El Tri because El Tri was always sort of like, okay, I have to have the ball. I have to be the proactive team, you know, that added pressure. And now I didn't see that. You know, it was actually pretty smooth in the going. Is let the game flow, and we'll get a reward. And the reward today, for example, was a damn handball in the 90th minute, a really rare one. You know, it was so
Yeah,
good.
that was, I saw that and I was like,
What are
what
you
is he
doing?
thinking? Like, what is he, like, I don't, did he think he was out of bounds? And then you see the replay and it's like, you could tell he was scared that, I think, was it
I think it was Santi, right? That was right behind
Santi
him.
or
Yeah.
Reyes or someone who was going the back post, and he must have thought he was closer to the goal at a better angle, so he tried to do something, but because the ball was going out of bounds, the Mexican player gave up on it already. So
Yeah. So, you know, those are the type of rewards. I mean, but the reward was because El Tri really, really pushed in the last 20 minutes. So I mean, I think that was where they found their prize.
all good things, but one thing me and John Arnold talked about in our last pod, I got to bring up today, Malagón. Is he solidified for you? Is he the best of a so-so options? I mean, it's one of those things where you watch him, he's a good shot stopper. They always say he's a good shot stopper. Some goalies are good shot stoppers. And I agree, he's a good shot stopper. But everything else around there, just I don't feel confident.
You know, I think we've been spoiled, Raul. We've been
Yeah,
spoiled with Ochoa. I mean, I think when you think about his track record and you look back, you know, at the World Cups, this is not a guy that was just on goal and was just there. No, this was the man of the match for many of Mexico's games in the World Cup, which I think says a lot
He has
about
multiple
this.
match of the man of the
Yes,
match awards, which is crazy for a
and
goalie.
multiple World Cups. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, if Ochoa's not the goalkeeper in that Poland game in Qatar, Mexico doesn't win that game. So or it ends with a tie, let's say. It could have been a loss. So that's we've been spoiled, and so now the la vara está muy alta. So if you look shaky, you look shaky
Yeah.
because we've been so spoiled with Ochoa. And I think Malagón is just growing in the position, growing in that role of like, okay, you're the number one. Let's see what you have.
So you're in the mindset, let him ride it out.
Well, we'll see in the Gold Cup, because they say that Ochoa's coming. So if Ochoa is going to show up and Ochoa starts and he looks
Well,
like
one thing
Ochoa,
to keep in mind that just was announced yesterday, we don't know who's going to replace Pachuca. The rumor is Club America is one of like 3 or 4 teams that has a hand up of, hey, we should be in because of this. I don't know what FIFA's going to decide. We don't know FIFA anything, but if Club America's in the Club World Cup, those players can't play in the Gold Cup.
yeah.
So that's another thing where
that's another thing, and that's something where Ochoa can win ground, no? So I mean, I think it's not totally close.
But for you, it's between Ochoa and Malagón.
Yeah, there's no other
No
way
option.
of putting it, and we'll see how it evolves. But for Malagón, it's important not to win something today.
Yeah, yeah.
And be part of it. And he did have that nice block, like you said. It was a good shot, stop.
He had a good 5 to 7 minute sequence where he made a couple nice saves, and I was like, okay, he's getting in the flow.
But like
And
I
then,
do sense it sometimes where like,
well, the
just
PK,
keep the ball or
the PK came after he didn't get clear the ball cleanly, and then the ball it stayed in the box. And what happened? A
yeah.
PK.
So those are little things that still need improvement for sure.
Any players that going into this window you were like not sure if they're going to find their place that now going forward, okay, he is one of the you know 10, 11, 13 guys that are going to be starting mostly for Mexico. I know we kind of talked about Piojo Alvarado. Anyone else that kind of came in?
Piojo stood out a lot. I mean, it was just amazing the way that he stood out. And then right now, I'm still debating on the Vega. I think Vega, he's doing well with Toluca, but it's still missing out in the national team, no? And it's not the same as what we saw with Alvarado. Alvarado was just amazing. I mean, I don't know. There's so many words, too many adjectives that I can put, but it was just impressive what I saw from him. But like, I'm still worried about the midfield. It's sort of like we do have the midfielders to sort of know how to suffer. Like
We don't have any creative like Edson. I love Edson, but when in certain parts of the game today where he was close to the 18 of the other team, I was like, I'm not scared. If I'm Panama, I let Edson have the ball 25 yards away from goal. He's not scaring me. He's not a Guardado where it's like, oh, let's go.
Or Achache.
Or yeah, or Ache. I mean, so it's like we're missing that 8.5. That player that can be dangerous going forward. I know a lot of people have been saying Marcel Ruiz.
They've been saying. So I mean, it's an option there. I mean, but it looks like before Marcel, there's an Orbelin, and then there's a Charlie, and like we said, we've seen Charlie so many times and nothing happens. You know what I
Do you
mean?
think when I was talking to John on Thursday, we talked about how Charlie actually looked good against Canada, and John's theory was it's because he was not expected at all to be creative. He was more playing the same role he plays at Cruz Azul, where he's sitting deeper, kind of just shuffling the ball back and forth, more defensive. And I think that role might suit him a little bit better. But if you're relying on Charlie Rodriguez to be a number 10, a number 8.5, someone pushing the ball forward, he's just not that. That's not him. And I don't know where that player's going to come from. But we need to find that in the Gold Cup. That should be the number one priority is find a number 8 to play.
Yeah, finding ways of like you said, creativity in the midfield, because we do have players that can sort of, be like players that know how to suffer, no, and make stuff out of pelotas divididas, no, where it's either or. But I think that's something to work on for sure.
Like a quick midfielder, like Romo, not quick.
Not quick.
I like Luis Chavez. He is great with the ball in a dead ball situation, but I don't see him carrying the ball 30, 40 yards in the midfield, We need someone who can do that every once in a while. Someone who can break the press, who can just, give Mexico some breathing space every once in a while. I think that's what we're missing in the middle.
Yeah,
I haven't seen
yeah.
anyone step up.
So we'll find out. If someone does in the next and especially the Gold Cup list is going to be interesting to see if there are going to be some faces that could potentially improve it. Because a lot of what has been said about like Novel Vargas and Elias Montiel.
Both those players, Club World Cup, they can't go to the Gold Cup.
Yeah, you see, so it's sort of like those are the situations right now. So maybe Marcel Ruiz will get looks in the Gold Cup. You never know,
I think he
especially
has.
if
I mean, I
Toluca.
don't know who
Yeah,
else they can call at this
yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah.
And well, real quick before I let you go, Gold Cup. What do you think Mexico should do? Is that another one where it's like, hey, let's play our best 11 every game, or hey, we have our top 6, 7 players. Let's try to find players 8 through 16. Build out the depth.
That's a good question. I mean, I think
Do
that
you need to see Raul and Santi every game?
I think for certain games you still
Yeah.
have to
So
do
you
it.
still call them in?
Now, still call them if it's possible, no.
Yeah.
And that's another thing right now. It's sort of like they've won time to work stuff out now because there's no pressure right now. There's you won the Nations League, okay. Now let's see what we can do in the summer, and it will depend, on the player availability and, like you said, and the situations that may arise. But I do sense that in the Gold Cup, you should give it a more reps as well. Especially with those players that were present in this Nations League.
Yeah. I guess I hate to say it, but I hope we do both. I hope we kind of play the players we expect to be there in 2026, but also try to find
The midfield is a big
the
issue
midfield
right
is
now.
going to have to be the area where we experiment the most.
Yeah, yeah. And like right now, what Alvarado did in this Nations League, it makes it very difficult to remove him. Sort of like, okay, so it's like you say Chucky comes into the picture. Well, I don't know, Chucky. You're not taking Piojo's spot.
So you think
It
it's going to
might
be
be
like Huerta, Chucky,
Huerta and Chucky,
Vega, all competing for that
last
left
one.
winger,
Yeah,
basically?
basically, that's what's probably gonna happen.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't
But
want to
it's
see
a good
Pineda.
problem to have, I
Oh,
think.
yeah,
It's a good problem to have.
yeah, yeah. All right, well, I'll let you go on that so we can go to sleep. I know it's midnight on the East Coast. Tell the people where they can find you, man. I heard you guys bringing back the Mexican soccer show.
We're working on the Mexican soccer show, yeah, Raul. So you can spot me there. I think we got 2 shows in, but try to do something 2 Mexican soccer show episodes per month, somewhere around there, with Cesar and Lissy. And you can find me on Blue Sky, Nayib Moran, right there for sure.
All right, well, thanks for listening, guys, and you know what? I feel a lot better than I did 96 hours ago before the Canada game. So going
Yeah,
forward, at least it could be worse, guys. We could be the United States right now.
it's looking bad, eh? It's looking bad. And hey, it was nice to see the whole scene with Henry and the Panamanian player. I think that was sort of the moment of the Nations League, the
Oh, yeah, that was
celebration.
great. That
It
was
was
great.
amazing, that thing.
And then they found footage of him saying, oh, Henry's my favorite player. I wish I could swap a jersey with him. And we're getting it.
You're
We're getting it.
getting
It's
it.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's
It's a
really
great
nice.
moment.
That was a really, really good moment for CONCACAF, and we'll see. We'll see. Saudi Arabia is gonna play in the Gold Cup, right?
Yeah.
That's what it looks. Yeah.
Well, did you see all those PIF posters
It was
and
everywhere. Yo, I'd never seen that.
yeah,
That was heavy.
yeah. Every time a player crashed with their advertising board, there was like PIF, the fund. This is the fund of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, it was heavy. It was heavy.
And I
Don't be
think,
surprised if Saudi Arabia is in the Gold Cup final.
yeah, and I think it's is it an Asian country or no?
Yeah, yeah. In Asia, it qualifies in.
Right? I think we're inviting someone else. I think. Let me make a look up real quick. We usually invite two countries.
One time it was Qatar. Before the Qatar World Cup, Qatar came in for a Gold Cup, I remember.
All right, so no, the only the only guest is going to be Saudi Arabia. Yeah,
Nah, nah.
invited guest. So
Well deserved. They've
we'll see.
invested a lot in CONCACAF, it looks like.
Nothing to see here, guys. Nothing to see.
All right, manito. Take care.
All
Great
right,
talking to
thanks.
you.
Thanks for listening, guys.